Chapter 14. Double Time. The morning breeze felt brisk on Hella's face, almost crackling with the anticipation of what the day held in store. Everyone took a moment to drink in the beauty of the morning after the dark and perilous night. Scatter then addressed the others. "All right then, we've got a long way to go even at a hullhound's pace. Let's get moving." He motioned to Hella. "My dear, we need to introduce you to our youngest hound whom you'll be riding. Come on over here and we'll set you up." Hella wrung her hands and shot a smile at Senna upon that invitation. She crept up to the enormous canine with one hand out. He, for his part, stared right past her while she approached. "Oh, he's not gonna hurt you, little miss. But you also don't have to treat him like a stray pup. Let me show you." Scatter guided Hella to the hound's flank. "Stand right next to him here. Now just grab a handful of his mane and use it to pull yourself up onto his back." "Seriously? That won't hurt him?" "Oh no, these animals are the furthest thing from fragile. And the sooner you acknowledge that, the sooner they'll bond with you." Frowning, Hella grabbed a handful of the hound's hair as instructed, then heaved herself up to sit on him. To her surprise, he didn't move at all, as if she weighed nothing. "Good, good," Scatter congratulated her. "Now raise your flame the same way you would if you were the one about to do the running." Hella closed her eyes and focused for a moment. Her chest began to glow in the bright morning sun. She opened her eyes to notice a similar glow peeking through the thick hair of the mane she was holding on to. "Excellent, my girl, just like that. Now," Scatter pointed to the horizon, "run forwards a ways, turn around, and come back." How do I do that?" Hella asked. "Just how you would if there wasn't a hulking hullhound beneath you. Remember, my dear, the flame isn't about thinking, it's about feeling, intention. You're already connected with the hound, whether you know it or not. You move as one. Just try it out. It's easier than talking about it." Hella nodded. So did the hound. She hunkered down as if preparing to sprint. The hullhound mirrored her actions. Then they were off. In a flash, Hella was propelled forward at a speed she'd never experienced before, not even when she was on Scatter's back while navigating the streets of Epole. She shrieked simply from the shock. Then it turned into a giggle, and then a holler. Whoa! It was exhilarating, and it wasn't just the speed. The agility and the responsiveness of her hound was unlike anything a person could ever emulate. She could feel it all, as if she was just as responsible for his movements as he was. Two minds piloted by the will of one. She hit a momentary pivot, turning in the opposite direction of travel, then headed back towards the others at full speed. Focusing on Scatter and Kartha, who were standing by the right of the others, she bolted in a straight line, then skidded to a stop just a hand's length from them. Both Senna and Farah stood there, open-mouthed. Scatter slapped his legs with both hands and let out a walloping laugh. "Wow! You got it, little miss! Just like that! Now how did that feel?" Hella tried to think of the words, but wound up just laughing instead. Scatter responded for her. "That's about as good a description as any! I can still remember the first ride I had on Kartha. What a day! Oh," he paused, "that brings me to one last thing before we can all head for the wall. We haven't yet named your dear pup here in the Thutan tradition." Hella looked at Scatter. "How do we do that? Is it some sort of ceremony?" "Oh, no, nothing quite so official. But two things must happen if you wish to bestow a name on a hullhound. Their mother must first accept the name. Then the person who names them must accept the hound as their own for the rest of their life." Scatter motioned to Hella. "Would you accept this honor, Miss Hella?" She sat bolt upright, still mounted. "Me? You want me to have a hullhound of my own? But aren't they supposed to be for Thutan warriors?" she countered. "Consider this my vote of confidence in you, my dear, that you will live up to exactly that standard. This will also meld you with the hound," he replied with a slight bow. Hella's smile returned to her face. She looked over to Senna, who was now beaming with joy for his sister. No one had ever honored her for anything. It was an altogether alien feeling, trust given by someone she respected. She thought for a moment, then said, I've got it, Scatter. A name. It's the name of someone who first inspired me with the dreams of the unvanquished flames and tales of Thutan history. It's perfect on the day we're actually going to escape from the Rāyins. She walked her hound towards Kartha, who sat to the right of Scatter. Kartha, with your permission, I'd like to name your son Drom. Kartha looked up to Hela, then down at her son. Her eyes reddened from the flame of her offspring in front of her. Then she threw back her head and gave a deafening howl. Hela flinched, but her hound didn't. His calmness soothed her in return. Then he raised his head and howled in reply. With wide eyes, Hela looked at Scatter, who answered her unspoken question. "Ha ha ha! It looks like you and Drom are now part of the pack. Congratulations, little miss." Hunching over, Hela gave her new companion a big hug. Drom closed his eyes and panted with apparent satisfaction. "Wonderful! Now, let's get moving in earnest." Scatter motioned at Senna and Farah. "Farah, you'll ride with me on Kartha. Finn, you're with your sister on Drom here. Hela, I'll lead the way. Stay on my tail. If I need to communicate with you, I'll have Kartha call Drom up beside us, and we'll speak well on the run. Everyone got it?" All three young people nodded. Hela moved Drom over to where Senna was standing, and then laid him down on his belly. Senna hopped on behind her, hugging her tight around her waist. Farah walked over to Scatter, who had already mounted Kartha in one graceful motion. He reached down and pulled the young Thutan woman up in front of him. They both took hold of Kartha's mane. Scatter looked over at the second group. "Ready?" he asked, grinning. Hela hunkered down, then returned Scatter's grin with a nod. The hull hounds began to emanate a dull red as Hela and Scatter raised their flames. Then they were off. The blur of scenery passing on either side of Hela soon became second nature. However, Senna whispered, "This is amazing." All of a sudden, Drom picked up his pace and rode to Kartha's flank. It caught Hela by surprise at first, then she remembered what Scatter had said. Sure enough, Scatter had a message for her. "Miss Hela, would you lead for a while? Just keep things steady in the same direction. I've got to convene with Kartha for a moment through the eye." "Kartha? Can he see the eye from all the way out here?" "He can, yes. You will too when you get a little better with your flame. But actually, it's Kartha who needs to talk with me, not the other way around," Scatter clarified. "His signal pulse just went out a moment ago, and I'm not sure what's happening. I need you to lead until I find out. Can you do that for me?" It wasn't as though Hela had a choice, but she agreed anyways. She directed Drom to the head of Kartha, who slowed. Scatter then lowered his head as his eyes turned fully red. Farah frowned at Hela as she passed. She seemed confused by what was happening. Senna shouted in his sister's ear, "Hela, what do you think Kartha needs to tell Scatter?" "I don't know, Finn. Scatter told his team to stay undercover unless things change for them, so maybe something's changed." Before they could continue their conversation, Scatter returned to flank them. "Well, that was quick," Hela said. "What's happening with Kartha, Scatter?" "It's not good, little miss," he yelled back. "It's hard for him to relay details with only hand signs, but it appears our escape has affected the entire call system. Policemen and troopers are investigating every single call right now. It's a mole hunt, my dear. Kartha is worried for himself and the team, and that's all I know right now. They can choose to cut ties if they feel the need and flee, though that may be exactly what the Rāyins are hoping for with this cull sweep. Spook us all into running, then capture us when we do." Hela's heart sank at that last remark. The Rāyins may be brutal, but they aren't stupid. All of Epole was built to be an impenetrable Thutan trap. Maybe us getting out was a surprise they didn't expect, but I bet they'll be more prepared for the next ones who try it. If she were the Rāyins, how would she stop other Thutans from doing what they had in Cull 19? Then she started to think about each of the undercover action group members and how they might coordinate an escape. Kartha is pretty smart. He's probably already figured out a plan or two. And he could communicate with Falk and Torin through the eye. Maybe a coordinated late-night leap of the call walls into the range? But all the Rāyins would need to do is post a few sentries on top of the rear wall at each call. There's only 200 calls. Would they spare a few hundred troopers for that? They might, after what Godden did last night. Hela's inner monologue was cut short as Scatter waved at her, then pointed forward. There, breaking the horizon, was the wall. It was within reach now. Her anxiety shifted to anticipation. The wall was getting closer with every powerful stride of their hounds. Escape. Freedom. Actual life without Rāyins and Asperite. No more blessings and fear. She, Senna, and Farah could live in peace. Actual peace, not the peace of soul. It was only one wall away. Kartha took the lead once more as they neared the outer wall of Epole. Looking left and right, Hela could see what looked like large spire structures near the edge of the horizon in either direction. That really did seem to place their approach dead center of those outposts. Scatter's plan was playing out perfectly. If that was where the sentries were stationed, they would have to cover too much ground from either outpost to capture their group. Almost there. They were close enough to see the individual bricks in the wall now. A small valley preceded the final approach. Probably a leftover dugout from the original construction of the wall all those centuries ago, Hela thought. As Kartha crested the top of the grassy valley, she started to slow, as did Drom. Hela thought nothing of it at first. Then her hullhound sniffed. His ears perked up and both hounds slowed further to half speed. Scatter looked back to Hela to yell something but didn't get a single word out before, "Oof!" Suddenly, Hela and Senna were flying through the air with no hullhound beneath them. They tumbled and skidded through the sod, nearly colliding with Scatter and Farah. The shock and confusion of their impact and spill made it hard to tell which way was up, let alone what had just happened. Hela scrambled to her hands and knees, the wall before her. Looking back through the dizzy haze of her spinning vision, she could make out both Kartha and Drom over on the other side of the valley, frozen in place. She scanned for Scatter and Farah, locating them just in front of her to the right, also scrambling to get their bearings. Blood was running down Scatter's face where he had been cut the day before. "Scatter! What?" Hela's voice cut short as her jaw clenched shut, but she hadn't done it herself. Suddenly, all four Theutons slammed, belly down to the ground. No, not this! How? How are they doing this? Hela screamed in her mind, barely able to grunt under the crushing Asperite force pinning her down. The thud of hasty footsteps seemed to come out of nowhere, and yet were all around her within moments. She tried to strain against the pressure to turn her head just to get a better view of them, the host of Rāyins that must belong to the myriad of footsteps. Hela's flame intensified, defying her invisible restraints. She forced her head up slowly against the incredible force, but before she could raise it high enough to glimpse her captors, her whole body lifted into the air until her feet were dangling off the ground. Now she saw clearly. In front of her were 4 mobile squads of shock troopers in a semicircular formation. But they weren't wearing the typical attire of a Rāyin shock trooper. They were covered in grass and camouflage paint. They must have been hiding in plain sight, Hela thought as she struggled in an all-too-familiar paralysis. The hounds caught wind of their scents at the top of the valley and tried to warn us that something was up. But what happened after that? I just remember being thrown from Drom. Did they freeze the hounds first? "That's him, the taller one right there. He's their leader." The voice came from one of the Rāyin troopers, but Hela couldn't tell which one. Then a large Rāyin stepped forward, breaking formation. Hela could only see out of her peripheral vision as he approached Scatter, but she could hear every word he spoke. "I cannot believe it," he said. "I honestly didn't think that you would be so dumb to try the same thing twice. In fact, I was about to cancel this whole ambush mission within the hour, but lo and behold, here you are. Oh, I am just baffled by the stupidity of it all." Hela turned her flame up even more, struggling to turn her head to see the scene unfolding to her right. Her head moved, slowly, but it moved. She wasn't nearly as helpless as the last time Rāyins had tried to restrain her. Several members of the mobile unit closest to her said something in response to her movement, then increased their force. Hela's head began straining against the movement now. "No! By Grom, you don't get to bully me this time!" She burned even hotter as her entire body started to emanate red light. Her head again moved to the right. She could see the Rāyin sneering at Scatter now. He was a colossus of a man. He must have been the commander in charge. The man almost stood at eye level to Scatter, who was levitating a foot's length off the ground. Scatter, just like Hela, was raising his flame. His limbs were moving at half speed, but the giant Rāyin stayed just out of arm's reach. "You know, though I'm not impressed with your poor tactical decisions, your raw Theutan power is quite remarkable. You sure are a specimen, aren't you?" Scatter burned even hotter at the troopers jeering. Hela saw him try to swing a leg and kick the man, but even that was out of range. "Wah! What a catch you are! Remarkable! The arch-gallant won't even believe me when I tell the tale." He began to pace side to side, hands behind his back as he sized up Scatter. Maybe you've seen us lift your kind into the air like this before, Did you ever wonder why we do that? It's a traditional tactic from hundreds of years back when we were at war with your kind. Those Thutans were absolutely savage, total barbarians. Not that you bunch aren't, but the Thutans of Ipol are pathetic compared to the ones of our predecessors. Nowadays, one could make the argument for us not to bother with this tactic anymore, considering the Thutans of the Kulls, but look at you right now, fighting against the power of 24 focused elite shock troopers and still able to swing a kick? Why, if you were held standing, you might actually have been able to lunge at me. He stopped pacing and wagged a finger at Scatter. You don't get that chance while you dangle, though. It may be an outdated technique, but now I'm glad your mutts tripped our pressure plates we buried back there and not you. You may have been able to break out of them, who knows? Maybe that's how you got into Ipol in the first place. Pressure plates? What does he mean? Hela thought, still fighting the troopers who were holding her immobile. As she was trying to figure it out, she saw Scatter do something inconceivable. He dropped his flame. His whole body went back to normal, eyes and all. What are you doing? Hela wanted to scream. Oh, is that it? The Rāyin taunted. Is that all you had in you after all that? He drew his Asperite saber as his laughter continued. Scatter, do something! Why did you... Hela's thoughts stopped dead as it hit her. Pressure plates. Against every instinct she had, she followed Scatter's lead. She turned her flame off, which caused her head to snap back straight from the enormous Asperite force that was holding it. Huh? You too, little rat? The trooper scoffed. Ha ha! So much for the mighty Thutan! His mockery was interrupted as another sound drowned out his words. One that caused him and every Rāyin present to stiffen in primal terror. It was the deafening, baritone growling bark of 2 charging hull hounds, furious and out to kill. Musings of the Watchers. Thutan warfare using the unvanquished flame of Holy Grom is traditionally an unarmed affair. It is considered uncouth for a Thutan to fight with forged or wrought weaponry. The flame of our holy matron is sufficient to defend her children. Tactically, warriors of Grom are known to take advantage of their environment, in addition to high speeds and feats of strength. It's chaos and cunning that are the Thutan's best friends.